everyone, I'm Nick and welcome back to Sci-Finatics. New here? Click that subscribe button and stay up to date with all the latest Star Trek news on YouTube. Today I'm talking to you about episode 6 of season 3 Star Trek Discovery entitled Scavengers. Interesting episode. This one we got to see a lot of new tech that's going on with the Discovery. We got the story going on with Burnham and the rescue attempt, with Book on the planet, with all the scavenger camp. We've got stuff going up on board the Discovery and a little bit of politics amongst the crew. Let's check this episode out and see what it had to offer. So for starters, in this episode, we got to see the Discovery upgraded a little bit. We got to see the fact that it's now got detachable nacelles. So it looks like the nacelles have got programmable matter that hold them onto the main hull of the ship, and then that dissolves when it needs to enable the ship to be more maneuverable at impulse speed. So I wonder whether we're going to get to see the Discovery in a battle situation detach its nacelles and sort of zip around in a bit more Defiant style battle scenario perhaps, because the Defiant was fairly nimble, didn't have the big nacelles out the sides, it was all very compact. I wonder whether that's going to be the case in future episodes. And also the fact that all of our crew members got new comm badges, and these are pretty special comm badges. They're not just comm badges and Starfleet insignias, they are in fact also communicators, tricorders and personal transporters. So these little devices do a whole number of very handy and useful tasks on board the starship. So the crew are just loving those, especially Tilly. And they also got programmable matter consoles, which they're all freaking out about. One of the funniest aspects of this episode, which I thought was great, is the fact that there's obviously a little bit of a learning curve involved with using these new comm badges, and the crew is kind of just getting used to them, dialing up the display and working out how they operate and all that sort of stuff. As Linus discovered, as he's kind of constantly beaming in and out of different rooms on board the ship, he kind of keeps getting it wrong. He's meant to be in the mess hall, he ends up in a turbo lift, and he's meant to be somewhere else, he ends up in engineering. He's popping into the captain's chair. He's jumping into interrupt intimate rendezvous between Burnham and Book later in the episode. Linus trying to work out how these new comm badges works was one of the more humorous highlights of this episode. One thing that we learned in this episode is that Burnham's on the hunt for various different black box recorders from Federation starships to try to get behind and understand what happened with the burn. There was an earlier episode where we saw her being passed a little module. At the time we weren't quite sure what it was, but now we know that it is in fact the black box sort of flight recorder from a Federation starship. She's gone on the hunt for these just to unlock the final moments of various different starships before they were destroyed by the burn. And Rin the Andorian has uncovered one of these for Book to give to Burnham, which has the Starfleet registry number NCC 316808 on it. There's a few really nice lines of dialogue in this episode when Georgiou and Burnham are headed off to rescue Book from the scavenger camp. I love the line from Georgiou where she calls Book a blob whisperer, referring of course to the transworms that he saved in the very first episode. And then sort of Burnham corrects her by saying, oh no, transworms aren't blobs. But then, of course, Georgiou said no, she was referring to the cat. I thought that was a nice little exchange of dialogue. Her sense of humour is always one of the highlights that shines through in all these episodes, I think. Now, obviously something went down with Georgiou in the last episode when she was having her little debrief, I suppose you'd call it, with David Cronenberg, the Section 31 officer or chief or whoever he happened to be. It seems like something weird is going on with Georgiou because she's having flashbacks. Now, obviously these flashes appeared too fast to get a sense of them while you're watching the episode in real time, but this is why you come to people like me on YouTube to unbreak these episodic moments and see if we can learn a bit more as to what happens. So let's take a freeze frame on some of these flash moments that Georgiou was having in her visions and see if we can get a bit of a greater sense of what she saw. Well, first we've got a shot of the Terran Empire logo on a window. followed by what I assume is Georgiou's blood-soaked hand, and someone better call Wakanda because I think she stabbed Black Panther from Marvel. It's kind of a carbon fibre suit with a black mask and gold trim. The murder weapon, which seems to be a Terran Empire brooch with a sword. Another close-up shot here of our murder victim in mask and armour. Georgiou holding her hand over the victim where the stab wound is. A hand holding a Terran Empire insignia. A computer graphics shot of the sphere data. Industrial looking buildings on a mountaintop. Another shot of the sphere data, this one a bit more blurry and overexposed. A younger looking shot of Georgiou here crying out the name San, S-A-N, while she looks at the blood on her hands. Whoever this person is, it seems like the Georgiou is having flashbacks to an event which occurred back in the Terran mirror universe, because we saw flashes of the Terran Empire logo pin. Whatever these moments are that are disturbing Georgiou, it's obviously something that went down for her back when she was in the mirror universe. I love the exchange that Georgiou has with Tolor, the Orion administrator. She just lays it into him, talking about how incompetent he is, and she's a master bullier. The only way to treat a bully is to be a bigger bully. So she certainly did a good job of that. And it seems he's the nephew of A Sara. Now, A Sara has been mentioned a couple of times in this episode. The Orion head of the Emerald Chain in this part of the quadrant. Admiral Vance is quite concerned about what A Sara is up to. And this was one of the reasons why the Admiral Vance had the Discovery on standby and ready to jump at any moment's notice, because of what A Sara and her division of Emerald Chain was kind of up to. Now, when Georgiou and Burnham were down on the planet pretending to be scrap traders, needing some spare parts, one of the items that they said they needed was self-sealing stem bolts, which of course is a bit of a hark back to that Deep Space Nine episode. Nog and Jake, I think, were trying to get into some trading deal, and they ended up getting an enormous shipment of self-sealing stem bolts. There've been a couple of respectful homage to Aaron Eisenberg, who obviously passed away recently. It was also kind of cool to see a Type 2 phaser from the Next Generation era come up in one of these piles of junk that they happen to be going through. Now, it would seem we're getting a new regular character in the form of Rin, the Andorian. And even though he took quite a serious phaser blast to the chest, it seems like he's going to pull through and be a part of whether it be Book's crew on his ship, or whether he's going to be on board the Discovery for a bit. It'll be interesting to see what further contributions Rin the Andorian makes to future episodes. I must say I do like how they've taken a couple of Star Trek races we haven't really seen too much of and made them a big feature in this season. Romulans and Klingons and Borg, have all been done to death, I think, on Star Trek in the past. We've seen a lot of Klingon episodes, we've seen a lot of Romulan stuff with Star Trek Picard, and obviously in this season they just wanted to get away from the Star Trek races that we've seen time and time and time again. Well, what are two races of Star Trek we haven't really kind of featured too heavily, and those being Andorian and Orion, and I think it's a nice fresh perspective on Star Trek to have two races that we know and have seen before in past episodes, but they haven't really got a huge amount of screen time in the past. So it's great to see that the Andorians and the Orions are taking a step up in their Star Trek presence and being the adversaries in this new season of Discovery. While Burnham and Georgiou were AWOL on their little secret mission, I like the exchanges between Tilly and Saru. We obviously had a bit of bonding going on between Tilly and Saru in the second episode of Discovery Season 3. Sort of almost like a father-daughter relationship between these two. There's also some touching scenes and moments of bonding between Adira and Stamets. They bonded over the fact that they've both lost a partner, and that partner, even though they've died, is kind of still with them. Obviously, Stamets lost Culber, and then he came back from the dead, and Adira lost Grey, and now Grey is still talking to Adira in ghost form or hallucination form. So they've both got a shared connection there. It's great to see that Adira has upgraded Stamets' spore drive interface. He's got a brand new system. It's got nano gel. He sticks his like hands in sort of 2 bowls of hand sanitizer, and that's the new system for the Sports. He gets the implants from his forearms removed, which always seemed like it would be really uncomfortable. So yeah, obviously that's a great improvement on the ship systems there. So Discovery gets a few really cool upgrades this episode, and on a personal note and on a ship-wide note as well. I love the scene at the end with Saru reprimanding Burnham for going rogue in this episode. I think one aspect of Star Trek which I've always found to be a good yardstick, so to speak, in terms of how to measure the gravitas of a captain is how they go in scenes where another crewman that they're perhaps close to has disappointed them and let them down. There have been many a scene in past Star Trek episodes between Archer and Trip, or between Janeway and Seven, where maybe they've done something that isn't quite what they should be doing. They've gone maybe outside of their orders, and the captain's had to bring them back into line. And how that scene has played out always, to me, has been a really kind of good judge of the gravitas of the captain. And I think Saru definitely stood up in this scene, and Saru has taken on that captain's mantle, and he has that gravitas. Kirk was a bit more of a shoot first, ask questions later kind of captain, and Burnham is turning out to be a little bit like this in her decision-making process on board the Discovery, where she just sort of does what she wants to do and, to hell with the rules kind of thing. Whereas Saru is very much by the book. This is what has to be done, which is far more similar to Picard's command style. So there are some parallels going on here, I think, where, between sort of Saru, a Picard, or Burnham, a Kirk kind of parallels. So it's kind of interesting to see this dynamic, and it will be even more interesting to see who takes up the mantle of First Officer of the Discovery, because Burnham's been smacked down to only Science Officer. So I wonder whether Saru is going to get a new First Officer from the 32nd Century Starfleet, or whether he's going to promote from within the existing Discovery crew. It will be very interesting to see who takes on that role. I really loved this episode. It had some great moments of humour. There was a few really cool lines of comedy. There was some great physical humour with Linus popping in and out of transporter, trying to get used to the new comm badges, and some good action with Book's ship and everything, rescuing the whole prisoners from the scavenger camp. I think it had a bit of everything, this episode. Not my favourite episode from the season so far, but I think it was certainly a very decent episode. But what did you guys think? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, have a look at my merchandise, either through the merch shelf or through the link in the description, or even take a look at the memberships page by clicking on that join button, where you can learn all about all the extra perks and added bonuses to being a member of Sci-Finatics. And I'll see you guys very soon for my look at the trailer and sneak peek for episode 7, which will be coming within the next few days. I'll catch you then for that review.